Western Teacher Live, talking about public education, unionism and much more.
Hello and welcome back to Western Teacher Live. We've had a little bit of a hiatus because so much has been going on in the world of public education here in Western Australia. But we are back, and we're back with some very good news for our members, both schools and TAFE. And with me to discuss that good news is the President of the SSTUWA, Matt Jarman. Matt, welcome back. It's been a little bit of a break for us, but because so much has been going on, but some really big news around the general agreement for schools and indeed the general agreement for TAFE. So let's start with schools.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, there has been a great deal going on whilst we haven't been reporting them to podcast. There's been a lot with the registration of the agreement. For the first time, very pleased to say that the state government has provided what's called an approval authority for back pay measures to commence before the agreement is actually registered. So there was commenced at the lodgement of the agreement, which is a terrific foresight from the government, recognising that we probably are 3 or 4 weeks behind where we would like to be, and our members are not going to be further delayed in receiving the back pay entitlements back to the 6th of December 2023 of that 5% and the commencement of all of the conditions in the new agreement.
And if you're listening to us in the week beginning or the second week of October, the first week back at school for our school members, when does that money go in, Matt?
We anticipate that money will arrive in people's pay in the first pay cycle of term 4. So that's the Thursday of week 1. But I wouldn't like to be pinned down to a date because this is payroll and anything can happen in the world of payroll.
Well, you've just been pinned down to a date, but of course our members know they can contact Member Assist if they have any issues about that. But hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast this week, this is very much the week that the money goes in for you. So, Matt, it might seem to our members to have been a long journey, right? I mean, for those negotiating, when did negotiations begin for this new schools general agreement?
Well, if our members are feeling that way, they would be quite correct. It began in September 2023, and of course the first part, the first component was delivering the log of claims to the employer. And then, of course, we had the state government's wages policy released in the few days before Christmas, and that had to be factored in. But we were back to bargaining around the 6th, I think it was, of January, and we were at it, as members are quite aware, all the way through to April. So it has been a very long process, and now we're at the very, very final stage, thankfully, where we get to have a lodged new agreement and look forward to a new set of conditions for our members, which I'd really like to talk about and explain a little bit further.
And we'll certainly let you do that. Just members are certain what's happening at the moment. It's with the WA Industrial Relations Commission. As we are talking in the podcast studio, it has not yet been ratified. It normally takes a couple of weeks minimum, and you will be advised via e-news the minute that the agreement is formally ratified, and all of the things that flow from that, like Know Your Rights sheets and red books, are indeed already underway, anticipating that endorsement from the WAIRC. And it, as you say, will bring forth a great deal of benefits to members. What are the highlights that you particularly enjoyed achieving in this negotiation process?
Well, there's a list of priorities, and that list of priorities really dictates the work that's been underway between the parties since the agreement was lodged. So there's not a particular one that I'd want to go to first because they're all very important. We've commenced work, and members will see information flowing through to the school level in the first week around the staff placements. So these are the 2 trials for a permanent teacher who's working in the metropolitan area and some parts of the southwest, where they can apply to a position in the Midwest, in the Wheatbelt, in the Kilbilly, the Pilbara and the Goldfields, and have the right to return back to their position in 3 years' time. And that goes for school leaders and for teachers. And there's a lot of work that's been done to make sure that that's in place from the beginning of the term, because we know that it's effectively staffing season now. That is going for teacher members. That's going to be under the auspices of mobility transfers, and for school leaders who wish to go out to those rural areas, where there is a lot of reason to do that for both teachers and members now, the new district allowances, which are also part of the agreement. They will be for 3-year periods. So that's really important to understand that this agreement is a 3-year agreement, but these are for 3-year cohorts. So in effect, there'll be the 2025 cohort for 3 years, there'll be a 2026 cohort for 3 years, and then there'll be a 2027 cohort for 3 years, and they will apply for quite some time past the expiration of this next agreement. So the 3-year trial is a very significant movement and change in direction for school leader and teacher transfers and mobility around the state, because we simply haven't been able to get high quality people into our regional settings, and now they have the opportunity to go there and do something different and enjoy what's out there, as well as have the right to return to the permanent position, which can't be taken away from them. So that's what we've been working on in the last couple of weeks, and I'm grateful to the department's staffing area who have done a lot of that work. And now we have moved on to other things like the senior teacher application process, the long service leave after 7 years, and the principal reclassification measures.
And all of those are very important. And I just want to emphasise, just going back in what we said before, that while the WAIRC is still considering the agreement and is yet to formally register it, unless you've been told in the meantime that it has, you will be getting your back pay this week, because, as Matt explained, the state government has made a payment on the basis that the agreement will eventually be ratified. So that's really important. Mobility in the workforce and the opportunity for people to get leadership experience and senior teacher experience out in the regional schools is obviously crucial. In terms of the salary increments that people are going to get, just remind us of what was achieved there.
So it's 5% in the first year of the agreement, 4% in the second year, and 3% in the final. So our members will receive 5% in this first back pay on that first Thursday of week 1, term 4, and then they'll receive a further 4% following on from the first pay cycle after December 6 this year, and then the final 3% will be in the same date next year, December 6.
And unusually, it will now be the new usual, but it's a 3-year agreement, not 2. That's one of the interesting aspects of this negotiation. And the process where we got to this, of course, started with member input. And I think it's something it's worth reminding members that they get a say in these processes. So the next time this all starts, and it'll be on us, even with the 3-year agreement, pretty quickly, worth reminding people that this agreement, the 2023 agreement, started with consultation with members.
Well, there's a lot to talk about in the EBA that is the consequence of the member action on April 23, and we should not lose sight of how much we received in that third offer because of the enormous action taken by members across the state. As for the ongoing cycle of bargaining and registering logs of claims, we've already got branches around the state sending through motions for the next log of claims. The cycle simply never stops, and I just want to really emphasise that with member engagement, because we have made it clear to this government, and we expect this government to be re-elected, but we have made it clear to this government that we will not tolerate low standards and poor conditions, and we will continue to argue and fight for them, and hence the example of the class size campaign is also going to be a reminder of the enormous authority and power that the Teachers Union has. So we have made significant gains thanks to member engagement and action, and we will continue to take that position up to government.
And if you are listening to, as we've mentioned, this podcast this week, do keep your eye out for your e-news this week, because that class size campaign, the community campaign, is starting to get underway. We'll be covering that in more depth in a future podcast, but it's been very much contributed by members. Many members have put in their experiences with oversized classes via the form that we put on our website and publicised through e-news. So we thank you very much for that. And how long will it take, you think? Obviously, the devil is in the detail in terms of bedding in these new processes. Things like the Ministerial Workload Task Force. When do you see that getting underway, and how will members be able to raise their issues?
I see the task force commencing in term 4 this year. I see documented plan work commencing in term 4 this year. Senior teacher process happening in term 4 this year. Professional learning changes ready for 2025 happening this year. There's a lot to happen in term 4, and this is where it's really very important that the Teachers Union works very closely with the employer to make sure that the communication and the messaging around what these changes are is very much in accord. Because if we don't have that, then we'll have simple confusion and we'll have dispute, which is not what we want. We want the new changes to be embedded for school leaders and teacher members ASAP so that we can get to this new ground.
And strong guidance needed on that, so that these aren't sort of things you can choose to enforce or choose to apply. These are in the agreement and they are a requirement that these new conditions are applied.
That's correct. It's all in the exchange of letters or it's in the General Agreement 2023. So this applies to everybody covered by that agreement and that award, and that applies to school leaders and school psychs and teachers and casuals and so on.
And we can assure you that as soon as the agreement is formally ratified, there'll be an electronic version on our website as the moment that happens. And we were also working to deliver our very famous, almost legendary Red Books. They will come along a little bit later. And as Matt's explained, part of that is because there's been a bit more of a to and fro this time around the wording of clauses, because there is such a level of detail here that we need to get it right. Matt, you've talked about salaries, you've talked about some of the key wins in terms of workload, in terms of mobility of staff and their ability to get new experiences. Another key issue is these, and you mentioned it in passing, is these district allowances. There's some significant improvements there.
There are, and the further away from Perth you get, the greater financial benefit to that person who lives in those regions. So it's really important that members take on board two things about district allowances. First of all, that they are aware that locality allowance for many locations is being replaced by district allowance, and what that new district allowance will be in meaning to them annually. And secondly, that we've already been engaged with government at their invitation to review the district allowances. So that's the formula by which district allowances are created and also the locations where they apply. So I'm very grateful to the government for opening that door so quickly, following on from bargaining, so that we can reach district allowances out to more people and have a better say, or a more appropriate say, in how the formula for calculation is taken on board.
And of course, we've talked about it again briefly, and it'll probably warrant a podcast of its own eventually. But the same process underway for TAFE. TAFE members voted in support of their agreement in principle. We've now gone through that process with them. So where are we at with the TAFE agreement? It's in exactly the same place, waiting for the WAIRC to formally authorise it.
Absolutely. The TAFE agreement has been lodged with the WAIRC and it's effectively in the same space. The difference between the schools agreement and the TAFE agreement is that a lot of draft clauses were written before the agreement was lodged within the Commission, which puts it in a slightly advantaged position. So we're looking forward to both the TAFE and the schools agreement being endorsed in a very similar period of time.
And I might catch you out because I'm warned you about this question, but where are we at with TAFE back pay? Is that the same for TAFE members? Or is that later?
At the moment, it's not. The very unusual set of circumstances for the schools agreement for an approval authority to be provided by government. I haven't heard or seen that done before. It hasn't been supplied to me in writing with regards to TAFE. So, yes, question without notice, Bob, but nonetheless not one that I can sit here and say, yes, it's going to apply for TAFE.
On a specific date, but and we will advise our TAFE
But I am
members.
very pleased with the TAFE speed with which it's been registered, and the fact that the schools agreement has made it all the way through to the Commissioner. We've had some positive feedback about some small edits. I don't anticipate there being a hold-up in either.
Excellent news. So excellent news for both our schools and TAFE members. Now, as these things roll out, there is also, no matter how hard people try, there may be some confusion or there may be some conflict about how things are being applied. If you have any member queries, you can go to our website, sstuwa.org.au, and fill in the form that asks for specific help from Member Assist, or you can give them a call on 1800 199 073. 1800 199 073, and they will endeavour to answer your questions as the new agreement beds in. So thank you, Matt Jarman, for joining us to talk about the agreement in principle, soon to be hopefully a fully ratified schools general agreement for 2023, and you can have 18 months of rest before you start negotiating the new one.
Thanks, Bob. I'm not quite sure about the rest component, but certainly that's the period of time. Thanks, Bob.
No worries, thank you.
Members can access a complimentary simple will where appropriate. For more information or details about a complex will, visit sstuwa.org.au/wills.